Hi everyone! Today I am playing around with a brand new stamp set. It's coming out in the mini catalog, the winter mini, which starts August 3rd for customers, but demonstrators were allowed to order some things ahead of time, and so I want to share with you one of the items that I got. This one is called Nature's Harvest, and I was drawn to it because of this image right here, which I think looks like a coneflower, and I have coneflowers in my yard. And I really enjoy them. I like them a lot, especially at the end of the season when the little part here kind of turns to seeds, and then there's a lot of, I have little yellow finches that come to the yard and some other birds that I don't know what they are, and they just kind of eat the seeds. And then squirrels, of course, kind of take over too after a while. So anyway, I really like the coneflower, and that's what this looks like to me. So it might be a black-eyed Susan, and you could surely use it for that, or maybe a daisy of some sort, but anyway, that's what I'm pretending it is. And then the sentiments on here are really nice too. So there's sending healing thoughts, and I think this is nice. And thank you, good luck, and a reminder to never forget how much you mean to me and so many others. And that's such a nice thing to send too. So I really like the stamp set, but also these dies are gorgeous. So it comes with 2 labels, and you can use that for the longer sentiment, and then the larger ones fit nicely on this one. And then you've got just the 2 floral images have dies, and then there's some additional pieces that just would be a nice silhouette. They don't cut out any of the stamps, but they're just a pretty little silhouette that you can have. They cut out, here's this one, and this one, and this one. And then this little branch, and I'm not quite sure, you can use that in the background somehow, or add something to it. I'm not sure. It's just a little background piece, so that might be fun. I haven't used that one. I think that's the only one I haven't used so far. So those are the dies, and here's the stamp set. And then I have a Facebook group called Best Paper Cuts Idea Sharing Group, and on that I do some things like color challenges. And this week I have a color challenge going that is Fresh Freesia, and then Blackberry Bliss, and I'm sorry, Rich Razzleberry and Blackberry Bliss. My coneflowers are kind of close to a combination of here. Closer to Rich Razzleberry in my yard, but this is a fun color combination, just different hues of this kind of purpley color. And so I thought maybe I would play around with this stamp set because of this coneflower. And so I am doing a card for my color challenge. If you want to join my group, it's open for anybody to join. It's just a group where we share our ideas using Stampin' Up! Products. And you can add what you're making, that's great, or you can just check out what I'm making, or take part in a challenge. So I decided that I was going to do a simple card, and I'm using a lot of stamps here, and I'm doing some background techniques, and I thought I would share that with you, and also some colored pencil. And I like the ease of this one, and this is for someone who maybe doesn't have dies, so eliminate this part. Not everybody has a die cut machine, and so I just wanted to show that the stamp set itself is super pretty even without those dies. And then of course I wanted to make another card using the dies. And so it's basically the same card, but I've used the dies to cut out the flower and also for the sentiment. And then I took it up one further notch and just did a lot more layering. So someone is just now, as soon as I started videoing, using a leaf blower across the street, but it's so loud even though it's across the street. It's amazing that that always seems to happen. Anyway, so I've got your basic, I've got it a little bit stepped up, and then I've got this one that's even more stepped up with a couple more things like colored ribbon and more layers. So I thought I would show you how to achieve this background and do this coloring. So hopefully that leaf blower is not too loud. Okay. All the cards start with a piece of Fresh Freesia, and this is at 3.5 by 4 3/4. I believe that's right. I'm going to double check. Yes, 3.5 by 4 3/4. And so I'm going to kind of create the same background on all of them. So I'll do one in real time, and then I'll fast forward when I do the other 2. And I'm using that kind of, what is it, like just a background piece. This one, where's my box? It's this piece here. It's just kind of a little background, and it Looks like it almost is the same size here, but anyway, I'm going to use it with Versamark. And Versamark is usually an ink pad that we use for embossing. It's called a watermark stamp pad, which means it doesn't really add a lot of color. It's kind of like a very faint color. And like I said, it's used for embossing. But I am going to use it now to create this background. So I'm going to do one while I'm talking, and I'll do the others and fast forward. So see, you can barely see that tone on tone kind of color. And I'm just going to move it around on the cardstock, just kind of making it have the background have a little more texture to it. I'm going to go off the page on some, turn the stamp different directions so that it's got just a background. It's barely there, barely there. Okay, and then I'm going to do the Fresh Freesia. So that's my lightest of my three colors. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment, the longer of the sentiments. This one has a lot going on. It says, a reminder to never forget how much you mean to me and so many others. Now this is not going to be something that I intend for someone to read. It's going to be used as a background. So I'm going to stamp it with the ink and then stamp on the side just to remove some of that ink. So see, it's hard to read. So it's not meant to actually be read. It's a background, and someone might see some of the words and then get the idea. So you're just kind of going down the card, trying not to be super patterny, although I see I'm doing that. I try to be more random. And so you can decide if you need to fill a little more space. I think that's good. So let me bring that up a little bit. Maybe you can see it. Okay, now I'm going to do the thanks. Oh, let me clean this because I used it in something dark. Okay, now I'm going to do the thanks, but this one I am going to go full strength, but still using Fresh Freesia because I'm still using the lightest of my colors. And again, this is just for the background. It's mostly just in the background, but I'm not stamping off this time. And I'm going to try to be random. So hard to be random sometimes. Oop, I almost stamped off. Okay, so that's my background. As you can see, it's there. You can read the thank you, but we're going to stamp even further on top of that. So I'm going to do the other two faster, and then we'll do the next step. Okay, I think I've got it. Okay, so we've used only Fresh Freesia, but we've got all kinds of different tones of Fresh Freesia going on, and that's really pretty. And then I'm going to grab the darkest color, which is Blackberry Bliss. And I'm going to stamp my large, what I'm calling coneflower image. And on one of them, I'm going to stamp it directly. Hopefully my head's not in the camera, directly onto my background here, like so. Now the other two, I'm going to go ahead and stamp onto another piece of Fresh Freesia. Okay, and then I'm going to use my colored pencils. I've been using colored pencils a lot these days. I had them on my desk, so I thought that might be fun. Colored pencils are a great way to get a lot of different colors, but they're not expensive. So you can get a lot of our Stampin' Up! Custom colors, and there's 2 different sets of colored pencils, assortment 1 and assortment 2, so it's a really inexpensive way to get a lot of color. And they're watercolor pencils, so I'm going to use them just as straight colored pencil, but there's different techniques you can do with them too. So if you haven't thought about the watercolor pencils, maybe check them out. So I'm going to just go in and color my flower. I'm just going to go over all the petals lightly first. And this is the rich raspberry color. Okay, so I did kind of a light pressure, and then with heavier pressure, I'm going to go back in and add deeper color at this, where the petal touches the center of the flower, and then draw it out a little bit, just to give it a couple more tones of rich raspberry, like so. And I'll do the same with the other petals. And I will speed that up. Sometimes I do fast forward because I feel like the videos get really long if I don't. So let me know in the comments if that is a distraction. Maybe you don't mind, you'd rather a bit longer video, although I think once I've done one, you got the point, right? But I'm open to suggestion. Okay, and now I'm going to grab what is the old olive pencil, and I'm going to add the stems. So this is the crushed curry, I forgot to say. And I'm adding that, and then you could stop there, but I'm going to grab my early espresso, and I'm just going to add a little bit of darkness at the base of the, I don't know, what's the middle of the flower called? Just a highlight. Okay. So that's it for my coloring, and I think that looks really pretty as it is. I'm going to now color these. Must have smeared that with my hand when I was working. So maybe I'll do another one. I smeared it. Now I've got rich raspberry on my hand. So I'm going to stamp it again, and then I will color these on fast forward. So my camera cut out. I use my phone, and I have forgotten to delete the last, I don't know, 10 videos that I filmed with my phone maybe. And so I just went to look to see how long it took me, what the timer said, how long it took me to color these, and I noticed my phone was black. I'm like, oh no, there's nothing filming. Luckily, I reviewed it, and I finished the one coloring before it died. So, and I was telling you that I was going to do this on fast forward. So it doesn't matter because you saw I colored this one and I finished these, and now I'm going to cut them out. So that is the next step, is cutting these out. And I've got a die for that. I'm going to use this little mini guy, I think. If I cut them in half, I can. I have the big one too, but sometimes it's nice to just have this little one that sits right on my desk. Whoa! Did you ever have one of those days? I'm having one of those days. Okay, so I've got my little and sometimes I use a little post-it note or a washi tape to make sure it stays where I want it. And I kind of think that's wise for today. Okay, so now I'm going to one. Let's do the other. It is seriously nice how small that is, I have to say. It's like right here. I don't have to move around and go to the little cutting station I have set up across the room. Okay, so I've got them cut out. How nice is that? Okay, so the first one we did, we colored directly onto our background. And so I'm going to go ahead and attach that to my base. Now I cut the base 1/4 inch bigger, so the background was 3.5 by 4 3/4. So then the base is 3 3/4 by 4. Is that right? I believe that's right. Or no, I think I did it differently, didn't I? 5. 3 3/4 by 5. I was just not thinking. Okay. So then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put these down on the bases. And the base here is Blackberry Bliss. So the fresh freesia is going down on the Blackberry Bliss. Okay. So I've got that. And then, so if you'll remember on the first one, I just did my greeting on a little piece of fresh freesia. And then I put a little matte piece underneath it. Now here I did Rich Raspberry. I think I'd rather do Blackberry Bliss, so I'm going to change it on this one. And I have a scrap of Blackberry Bliss. So I'm just going to cut this down. I think I'm going to make it even smaller. Should have cut the paper first before stamping. I'm trying to go for 3/4 inch. There we go. And then I will cut this one a little bit bigger. So this one, I think it is 1 inch. Slightly bigger. Okay. I just grabbed some scraps out of my pile here. So this is 3/4 inch and this one is 1 inch. And then I will go ahead and chop off a little angle. I don't think it matters which way I go. This time I'll go this way. corner on that one. There. Okay, so that will go right on top here. And then I'm putting it on a base of rich raspberry. Okay, so here you've got the minimal supplies, but still pretty coneflower card. And then I'm going to add a few more supplies for the second one. On this second one, we're going to go ahead and put the coneflower up on some dimensionals. Oops. At one point, and I think the video cut out when I did this, I realized I smeared my coneflowers with my hand, and so I turned it over and stamped it again, but I don't think that made it onto the video before it cut out. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and place this pretty much in the center, and then I'm going to make a little thank you with some embossing powder. So again, we're going to use that Versamark pad. This time we're going to use it to emboss. And I usually grab scrap paper out of my recycle bin, and I'm using white embossing powder. I realized I needed 2 of these, so I'm just making another one. I have this really nice tray that collects the embossing powder and then funnels it back into the jar. It's great, and yet I always just use a piece of scrap from the bin. Okay, so we're back to cutting out our labels. And I'm going to grab this little small one. Hopefully I cut this piece big enough. I did, okay. Okay, so for our next step up card, we're going to take this fresh freesia ribbon and tie a little bow. It's a really pretty ribbon. It's called Open Weave, which is because the center is open. It's really delicate and pretty looking. Okay, so we're going to add that to one of our cards here with a glue dot. And then, oh, I am going to take one of my thank yous. I just realized I did this one in Blackberry Bliss, but my sample I did in Rich Raspberry. I think I like the Blackberry Bliss better, actually. So I'm going to throw that down with some dimensionals. Now I'm biasing my dimensionals to this side because the knot from the ribbon is on the left side. So I'm going to kind of cover it slightly. And just so it doesn't flop around, I'm going to add glue dot. Yeah. And then that is going to go down on a base of Rich Raspberry. But this time, I'm popping it up a little bit with dimensionals. There. Okay, and now we're going to take it up one more notch. This time we're going to color the ribbon. So I'm going to get myself a nice piece of fresh freesia ribbon, and I want to make sure it's going to go around and tie a bow. And then I'm going to grab my markers. Now you can do this with regular water-based marker, or which is the Stampin' Write markers, or you can use your blends. I'm going to use my blends because it's easier with the blends, I will say. And there's two different, they always come in at light and dark, and I'm going to grab the light Blackberry Bliss. And then, you know, there's two rows of this satin with the open weave in the middle. I'm just going to go on one side and add that color. Now, that was real simple, right? And if you use your Stampin' Write marker, you might have to flip it over and do the back side as well. It might not, it depends on how juicy your marker is. If you use the Stampin' Blend, tends to be enough. The alcohol in it kind of penetrates and it does both sides at once. It depends on the ribbon you're using too. The satin one here with the open weave does a nice job. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tie around, but I want to bias my bow to the left. So let me see if I've got it. There we go. I managed to fold it while I was tying it, so now it's got a weird little kink in it. So pretty. I love the two-tone. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and stick down our flowers, but this time we're going to add some little pieces behind. Now, I used the coneflower and I don't know what that is, wheat stock last time. I think I may change it up this time. Maybe I'll do all three. I don't know. That's too much. We'll see. Okay, and then I'm going to use dimensionals to put on the colored one that we did. Okay, and then behind here, I just want to add a couple mini dimensionals, and I didn't see any on my desk. I know there's got to be some. There they are. Okay, just so it doesn't flop up too much. I love that we now have two sizes, or if you have just the bigger ones, you can cut them in half. Okay, so now I've got that, and then I just want to add my sentiment, and then we're almost done. We just have the inside. I lost my sentiment. There it is. Okay. I've got my thank you. I might have to adjust my bow a little bit. There we go. Okay, and then I want to show you what I did on the inside. Okay, so for the inside, remember how the outside, we couldn't really read those words. They were just kind of background. So now we're going to make them where you can read them. So I'm going to grab my Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to take the words and go right down with the longer one. And then I'm going to put the thank you. And then I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to add another image from the set, like this. So you can do it like that, or, let's see. Okay, so that is your sentiment, and I think it's really pretty. The two together work nicely, and I am going to color one of them, and I'll leave the others. And I think, you know, you can decide how much you want to do on a card, and I think that this image on the inside is perfectly acceptable to leave just with that raspberry ink and not color it in. So you can kind of make that choice, but I'll show you what it looks like. Now this flower is more of a daisy, I feel like, with the multiple on a stem. And my green needs sharpening. Okay. And there's your inside. Isn't that pretty? So I hope you like this. If you would like to take part in my little color challenge, join me at Beth's Paper Cuts idea sharing group on Facebook, and show me what you're doing with fresh freesia, rich raspberry, and blackberry bliss. Now, if you don't have all of those colors, feel free to substitute. You can do something close, or, you know, just the same idea even. Maybe you have one of the colors and you can find a way to lighten them up by stamping off. You can use them in so many different ways. So if you don't have all the colors, that's okay. Or maybe you just have the papers, but not all the inks, or vice versa. So find a way to take part in the challenge. We'd love to see what you're doing with these colors. I hope you like the stamp set. That's going to come out soon, August 3rd. And if you have any questions for me, please feel free to put them in the comments, or you can sign up for my newsletter, which is where I announced my color challenge. You can sign up for my newsletter at my blog and also at the Facebook page, or even my Stampin' Up site, bethspapercuts.com. And there's links to all those places up in my channel description. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.